The following Earth Angel Media presentation is brought to you commercial-free as a gratuity from the sponsor-producer named after the show. Please consider their message. Find other high-value shows listed at earthangelproject.com. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to Leadership on Purpose, the podcast series. I'm your host, Kathryn, and this is where we shatter the status quo and dive deep into the raw, unfiltered stories of those who are embracing their inner alignment. If you're tired of the cookie-cutter approach to success and you crave a life that resonates with your true self, you are in the right place. Join me each week as we uncover powerful insights from those who have had the courage to lean into their purpose, live authentically, and create a life they were made for. This isn't just a conversation. It's a movement. This is a revolution of authentic leadership, where we don't just talk about change, we live it. And you can too. I'm so excited for you to meet my friend, Carola. She is joining us. She's an actor, she's a writer, she's a filmmaker, she's a producer. She hails from Germany. She is Italian-American. She grew up in Germany and in New York. She has always wanted to be an actor, and she found a way to really tap into her inner being and make that dream come true. So you can actually also see her on her award-winning film that she wrote, produced, and starred in, The Cuddler. And thank you for joining us. It's so good to see you.
It's so good seeing you.
So we have a fun little history, because back how many years now? 11 years ago?
Yes.
When I was in my corporate job and we were shooting a commercial that we needed in order to brand the company, and I casted you in a series of we probably shot over four or five different spots.
Yes, I know.
In Vegas, in LA.
I know. And the famous one is where I get my face licked.
You got your face licked
Which
in a
was
casino.
very controversial,
It was very controversial. We had to pull the spot down. It was the whole thing. But it was really fun. And that's when I first got to really know you. And I've been watching you on your journey for the past couple of years. And I'm really excited you decided to pop in and talk to us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah.
This is wonderful to be here and reconnect. And also like seeing that you journeyed from the corporate world into now your individual.
I know.
Yeah, it's exciting.
That's its own transformation.
I know, and
sure.
It's brave. As we know, it's always brave to listen, to the call.
Yes, listen to the call. Well, and that's really my whole goal with this is, I think our viewers are a mix of managers and leaders, because it's called Leadership on Purpose. Mm-hmm. But my focus isn't just leaders in the business world, because I'm a big believer that you're a leader in your life, right? You lead your family, you lead your friends, you lead your spouse, and you're the star of your own show. So what's that script look like? And there's not a lot of people that write that script. They let the script be written for them, and then they are just, a reactive person in this 3D construct that we live in. And so I really want to encourage people to listen to the stories of everybody and say, hey, you know what, I kind of identify or I resonate with that. And I think that's something that I can probably implement into my day-to-day so that I can shift just a little bit more into a place that I'm feeling more fulfilled and, approaching life from that place of purpose and fulfillment so that we live the life that we were made to live. So, and a lot of people I've been able to talk to through this series have done a lot of extraordinary things, but I think it's because of the identification of the awareness that you have and, the idea that you're really leaning into who you are as a person and what you were really made to do, right? It's like when you can really tie yourself authentically, into your purpose and you tie that to your work, then that's when the real magic happens.
True. And trusting your inner voice, because there's so many outer voices that tell you, oh, you should be doing this, or why don't you do that? Because, and also I think as a society in general, the concepts that we have, the ideas, but I do believe they're shifting right now. I believe we're...
I think there's a shift in the level of the consciousness as a whole right now. And that's
absolutely.
Why, when you look at the trending topics, even on LinkedIn, I'm pretty active on there. And, the most engaged posts, a lot of them are around personal growth in the workspace, right? Yeah. And I think there's a need for that. So, But anyway, you had something really interesting happen to you in Bali. So I want to talk about that. Take me through that story and your transformation and how it changed the way that you think.
Well, I think Bali was just before I moved to LA. But before Bali, I felt I was very much just, I grew up in Germany for the most part, a very linear kind of thinking, like you do this and then you do that, and you have to, just check mark all these things. There's a linear path. But part of me, thinking back, always knew that there's more, but it wasn't palpable. I didn't grow up with any kind of specific belief. My parents both left church. But now thinking back, I was always spiritual. I always knew that there's more. And then when I went to Bali, I just had that. I was able to see a cremation ceremony, and it was kind of. It was so different to anything else I ever seen in my life.
Oh my God, I can't even imagine.
Because they're Hindus, so they believe in reincarnation, and it's a celebration. So they invited us as tourists to be part of their celebration. It was a relatively young woman that died. She was in her late 40s, and the whole village put actually money together for her to have her own cremation ceremony, because usually, if you're of a lower caste, you can't have that own kind of cremation ceremony. So she was loved. They did that. It was like we walked through the town and they had offerings and they were singing and dancing. And then we went down to the ocean, and there was, some prayers, and then they the body on fire, and
wow.
And then later on, like that's
so
when
you saw the body burn.
We didn't see the body because it was in like a bamboo kind of coffin, so you didn't see the body.
So it was in a coffin, and the coffin burned.
Yes, that bamboo kind of coffin. Yeah. So it's not a coffin how we know it from the Western world. It was that bamboo like kind of a casing. Yes, and we left then. But what we were told is, so they wait until the body is cremated, and then the closest family with the priest, the white priest, goes out on the ocean in a boat, and they scatter the ashes, and it's about returning back to the elements. So they believe everything is circular, that there is not that linear. It's everything is circular. We come and we go, but it's every time it's like a journey. It's like a phase. Like I call it now school. Earth is school, and we come back many times, and it's kind of learning lessons. It's soul evolution.
So how did that change your thinking? You go do that incredible experience, you come back to LA, and then what? What do you do with that?
Well, that was before I moved to LA.
Okay.
But I would say now that was the beginning of my spiritual journey. And then I started doing yoga when I moved to LA.
Okay.
And I had, the thing about LA, I kind of feel that is so fascinating. I believe LA attracts very old and very young souls. So you meet people that you can just tell they've experienced a lot. They have so much depth. And then there's a lot of superficiality too. I call those the young souls that are just the glitter and the glam.
Yeah.
But I met some amazing people that I feel also, nurtured that journey. If you're a seeker, and I think I've always been a seeker, I always believe that there's more than this little concept of idea, we come here for this one lifetime, and you better get your university degree, and you better have a job all your life, and make sure you save for retirement, and make sure you have your house with the white picket fence. That there is more to this. And I feel, especially during the pandemic, a lot of people kind of suddenly had time to reflect on their lives. And I think that's when a lot of people started thinking, is this job really what I want to do for the rest of my life? Is it fulfilling me? Is there more? And these questions, that begins the journey, and then you kind of, either you shut it down because you get so scared and like, oh my God, I can't. What will what will my neighbors, what will my parents think? How will I pay my bills?
Yeah.
You know, a lot of fears come up. But that is where you lean in, you know, and it's kind of, okay, what are my fears? Like, what am I really scared of? What do I really want?
Right.
Like, start asking these questions. And
Yeah, I think COVID's an interesting time because it was the one time where, you know, people who were working at home, it now blended. There was like this gray area, right? Like now you're talking to people inside their bedrooms. You're talking to people in their kitchens. Their cats are on the camera. I mean, they're drinking wine out of a coffee glass. Like it was, you know, it started to change the game in a lot of ways for people to realize that, you know, my life, I think I'm going to approach more holistically because I'm working in my personal life and they're kind of blending. And, you know, what I've seen a lot of with my clients is they've come out of that and have said, I want to live my life a little bit differently. I want more of that. I want more of a fulfillment aspect of my life. I want to be able to approach it from this place where I work and live. And I think that's been a really interesting perspective of what COVID did as well. But talk to me a little bit about that transformation for you. And we were talking about mindset. So where does mindset play into what you do every day? I mean, the entertainment industry is probably more of a challenge to navigate than many.
You probably have more. I read somewhere you have more rejection in a day than most people have
in like a month or in a year.
In a year or in a lifetime.
For sure. So how do you navigate that and then still get up every day and be like, okay, this is what I want to do. This is my purpose. You know, where does that play into your mindset?
I think the biggest realization was that of course you hear that all the time, you can't take it personally. But on a bigger scale, it's like you really have to love it so much and know that that's deeply down, you feel that's what you're meant to be doing. But also find a lot of things that you do that, you know, where you have more the short-term kind of pleasures. Like, you know, writing is something that, you know, that's where I can go in and do that kind of work. And I don't have to like put it out there right away. Like it's a different, because as an actor, you always have to, you know, be there, be ready. And often it's kind of like, nothing, patience. And then, okay, you have to be there right there and you have to be on and you have no control at all. So just to understand that not, you know, some things you have control over and some things you don't. And I think that realization and to, you know, learn to just be not so much in that space of, oh my God, they don't like me, or something like, you know,
How do you handle it when, you said something now that made me think of this question, but how do you handle it when you have to be on, right? But maybe you've had a bad day and you're just not, your headspace is not, you know, like not working for you. It's not supporting this role that you have to now go and be in, you know, be in a movie or something. Like what are the tools you use? Because I'm sure that happens to a lot of us, right? Like it does happen. You go to a meeting and something just happened in your personal life and you're just not feeling it. Like what are the tools you use to get yourself into a place where you can really be present? And the reason I ask that, because I want to clarify when we talk about presence, the reason that I love the idea of being present, and I think it's getting a little cliched, but when you're present, you're actually not letting the thoughts of the past or the future.
Yeah. It's a meditative state.
It's a meditative state.
And that's exactly what acting to me is as well, because I let go of my life and my everyday thoughts and I become that character that I'm portraying. And I have a perfect example. This last film that I was shooting, the first day of shooting, my dad went into the hospital, and my dad he had Alzheimer's, and it was very, very emotional, and didn't know what was going on, and it was my first day of shooting. So I had to kind of put all that aside. I had to turn my phone off. I was on set, and what I think I think I do just because I practice meditation a lot, and that I kind of let go for that time. There was nothing that I could do. And I went into that, what we call meditative state of being present and just being in the moment. And because otherwise I couldn't have, I did a good performance.
You can't transcend through that.
No.
And I think that's important for people to understand when you're in that present moment, because that's all we really have. That's the only thing that's real.
Yeah.
It's what you have right here, right now. And
Very true.
where you are right here, right now, it's like you have everything you need. You're okay.
Yeah.
It's like that present moment is always going to be the moment that saves you, because it is you, right? That is your moment. And
there's this saying, like, anxiety comes when you're already anticipating, you're in the future, and depression comes from when you're living in the past.
Yeah.
So it's so important that present moment is really all, as you just said, I love that, all we have.
all we really have.
Yeah.
And it's hard to, like, when you're living your life and you're navigating all the challenges of just work and kids and family and things that go wrong and finances and, to get yourself to that place.
Right.
And it's like everybody's tool set's going to look different.
Yeah.
What are the tools you use to get yourself there?
Well, I feel I've trained my mind so much through meditation. I do a lot of yoga. And I think also a lot of experiences that I've had, a lot of moments of extreme uncertainty. Like I moved to LA all by myself. I didn't have anyone that I could call and be like, hey, I need help. Like in the beginning, I knew one person. So there is something I believe that happens when you start really also understanding that you hold a certain kind of power within, and you either let your mind run wild, your thoughts and all what could go wrong or what you're worried about, or you kind of, it's almost like you really start living in the presence as much as you can. And no one can do it all the time. And things happen and you get kind of thrown off. But for the most time that you really try to, when you talk to someone, to be there with them without already anticipation or thinking
like
the
other
next
things.
thought or and all that. And that really, I think as far as I know, it's like a muscle, you
have to
train it,
yourself.
you train it. And that's why you start meditation in the beginning just with a few minutes, and a mantra. Like I do a lot of Kundalini yoga where you work with mantras a lot, where you just kind of start. And the more and more you do that, you just realize, when I'm present, I actually, can move through so many things so much better than if I would drive myself already crazy thinking all these thoughts, especially if you're not right now in that situation dealing or able. So often we have to wait to deal with something. There is something that came up, but we know we can't address that until maybe tomorrow. So what, you want to spend the rest of the day and evening tormenting yourself?
Right.
Of course, like with certain things, you may have to sit down and make some decisions or some thoughts, but then you have to let it go. So then either, and for people, it's different. Some people, when they go running, they can really go into a meditative state. I think the most important thing is to find what works for you, because
what
we're
puts you there.
Yes, because we're all such unique snowflakes. I always love to say that.
Yeah.
But
I read that you wrote that.
Yeah.
Snowflake. I thought that was really cute. But it's true. We're all made so uniquely and differently.
Right.
And we each have our purpose, right? In that snowflakes is a purpose, and that purpose is tied to fulfillment. That's why we're here. And, being present is such an interesting conversation, because you can tell when you're talking to somebody if they're present or not. Like you'd be having dinner with someone if they're checking their phone all the time, or like there's like an emptiness behind their eyes, and the energy changes.
Yeah.
And so there's so much benefit in really allowing yourself to be aware of that, even for yourself. Like I found myself having, we did earlier, right? We were having a conversation. I'm like, wait, I just lost my presence, right? I gotta I gotta take care of something, and then I want to come back to this. And I think having, it is a muscle. Like I was never like that before. It's taken me, hours of meditation and understanding and digging deep into, my own self-awareness journey to figure that out. But I wouldn't trade that for anything, because I love the idea of when I'm having a conversation that I give myself permission to put the pause on all the story that's going on in my head. And I'm pretty careful about that story. And I'm, definitely aware of making sure it's a story that works for me and not a story that doesn't. Yeah. So I've cultivated that story, but I don't want it running when I'm talking to somebody. I want to hear what they say, and I want to be able to absorb that and have like a true conversation. So I love that, you mentioned that too, and that you have the same approach to that. I think that's really important.
And what you just touched upon with the story you're telling yourself, that's, once you are able to be in that present moment, also to realize when the stories come up, what stories are you telling yourself?
Yeah.
That's
and that. So I took this whole course. I didn't make this up. This was a David Bayer thing, but he talks a lot about the limiting beliefs that we have, right? Which is the story that you tell yourself. Mm-hmm. And, how do you like flip the narrative on that? How do you decide like, okay, I've been telling myself I'm not good enough and I'm not going to make this, next move in my career because I just don't think I'm good enough. And one way that, he's talked about that I have found so helpful, and I've used this many times, is you make the decision, right? You're like, no, I'm now going to make a new decision that I am good enough. And your brain is like a SEO machine. So you have to like put it to work for you and not just let it run you. Mm-hmm. So you have to like find the existing evidence. I think actually Abraham Hicks talks about this too, but you find the existing evidence of the situation similar to the one that you're struggling with in ways that you were good enough, right? So it's like, wait, no. I'm telling myself I'm not good enough, but in this situation, here's where I was good enough, and here's where I was good enough, and then here's where I was good enough. And now it's like, no, why would I say I'm not good enough? It's not true, right? So now you're giving yourself this matrix that's like, okay, I'm just going to make this new decision, and now I have evidence that that decision is supported by my previous actions, right. And you just create a new belief system on that. And I love that idea because it's so simple, yet it's so complicated and hard for so many people, to be able to like show up the way they want to show up because they're saddled with this terrible story that doesn't serve them. And so I just wrapped up a keynote speech I was working on that's really centered around limiting beliefs, because it's exactly what a lot of people struggle with, right? It's the paradigm that runs in your system every day.
You hold on to these kind of limiting beliefs, and because you hold on to them, you cannot get to where you want to get to.
Right.
But it's also kind of scary because sometimes letting go of certain beliefs, even if they're limiting, that's what you kind of build your whole personality kind of concept around.
Correct.
So it's like you have to let go of all of it, and you have to kind of maybe be in that free falling kind of state.
Well, and it's hard, I think, for a lot of people too to be like, well, how do I know I have a limiting belief? And the best way to know that is look at your reaction, right? You have a trigger or a deep-seated crazy reaction to something. Right. Well, then you're carrying a belief system around that topic, and then you just got to dig deep and figure out what that is. But the last 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, maybe I've, been deep on that work and just like, being like an investigator, mm-hmm. like, why is that my reaction? How do I flip the narrative on that? What's the new story I'm telling myself? But you have to be really conscious of that. It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, and it's, ongoing work that I would say never completely goes away, but we get better with it. And we kind of
shift every day. Yeah. You just shift a little bit more.
Yeah.
And that's like that kind of growth. Like you look and you don't see it every day.
No.
But then in like 6 months, you're like, oh my gosh, look at how much I've changed,
And how you move through challenges that you would have thought previously, oh my God, I could never move through that.
Right.
But and that's where you have to also understand to kind of, pat yourself on the back and be kind of like, wow, this is how far I have come, to give yourself credit, because I feel we're so good at being harsh, hard on ourselves,
right,
and seeing all that we, maybe have not achieved yet or have not gotten to yet.
Yeah.
But what about, really acknowledging those small steps on the way?
Yeah.
Because that's what takes you.
Yeah. And then you can say, wow, I've come this far. And where do I want to go? Like, what's the clarity around that? I was just talking to someone else about journaling, and we were saying how journaling is so important because it really does provide an outlet for you to gain that clarity. Like, I mean, if you talk to people who are like, oh, I don't really know what I want to do in my life, or I don't know where I want to be a year from now, it actually saddens me because I'm like, whoa, wait, you've got have that clarity for you to know, what it is you were born here for. You were put here for a specific reason, right?
And what truly fulfills you.
And that's exactly what the role is. Like, what's your purpose and how does it fulfill you? And that's the life you want to live. Yeah. That's peace. That's like inner joy. That's inner peace. That's when all the things come to you.
Yeah. And also, I believe that there's, even so things maybe can be hard at times, but if you lean into the direction that is really truly what you feel is your calling, suddenly there will be interesting alignments happening.
Yeah.
That are kind of like, oh, not that it's like an easy journey per se, but you will just...
You notice the synchronicities.
Yes. And like, oh, how interesting that just came up, or that I met this person.
Yeah.
Or I read this message.
Yep. Well, it was interesting when I decided I wanted to go open up my own, consulting studio and do all of this. I had thought about it for a long time, and I was like, I don't know, maybe I should just stay in the W-2 world. And so it came. So I was driving. I just dropped my son off at school, and I was stopped at a light, and it came like a thought in my head again. It's like, no, I felt called, and I was like, okay, I'm going to listen to this call. And then I opened my eyes, I closed my eyes at a stop sign. I'm like, I'm going to listen to this because I'm feeling so called. And around me was like the number one everywhere. Like the cars, it was like ones everywhere. And I was like, I've never seen anything like that. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, that's weird. Like, I guess maybe I'm on the right path. And then there was a commercial for one part of the business I was struggling with, trying to figure out, and ended up getting connected with these people, and I just leaned into it, and it kind of happened. And then there was like repeating, I see 444 everywhere. Like, you know what I mean? It's like,
you're open for it. That's the one thing you have to open up to actually receive. And again, I'm going back to, we are so trained in our left brain kind of thinking that it needs to make sense. It needs to have facts, and
you have to logicalize it. It needs to land in a way that's like chronological and linear and all the things that
you can explain it, that it makes sense.
Yes.
But once
much of life is not like that.
No, and once that was for me a big epiphany. The more I really followed like my intuition, and trusting my intuition, and the knowing and checking in with me, and that's when I realized, like, also that's when you start having a different kind of confidence, because it's not from just these facts or things.
And you don't have to rely on what your physical world is just showing you at this moment in time. It's like, no, my knowing is so strong that I know this is what I'm meant for, and so whatever this 3D world is showing up as at this red hot moment, it doesn't have, it's not final. It's like, it's going to change, and I'm going to change it. Yeah. And I think that's where so many people get stuck, because they're like, no, this is my life, and there's nothing I can do about it, and I'm, I don't like my job, I don't have enough money, it's like, but it's a story, but
you're telling all the things why something cannot work.
Right. Well, it's like and that's your life, because you put yourself there. You're a co-creator of your own experience, right? So I don't know. I love these conversations because they're so, first of all, validating that, you can live in this, you can live a life that can be whatever it is you want it to be, and that you can, you have your own part in that. And like, I love when other people have the same experience. And I just want to share that message, because I think I want people to realize you don't have to be stuck. Like, you're not stuck. This is not the end. You change your story at any time. Yeah. So
there's, I think, that expression about that there's this, it was like, you can only, there's that glass ceiling kind of. Yeah. And it also is connected with our nervous system and everything, where, you feel triggered, and then it just seems so much better to stay where you are, even so you're unhappy, than
because you're comfortable there.
Yeah, because at least you know what.
Here's what's funny about the nervous system. So your sympathetic nervous system is there to keep you alive. So back in like the Stone Ages, right? When like you're going to get chased by a bear, you needed your sympathetic nervous system to rely on, because what happens is when you get that fight or flight feeling, your system actually shuts down and it sends all its energy to like your heart and your brain. So you can actually pull through a physical activity you need to stay alive. Not because you got a bad email, not because you got a bill in the mail, but that's how we're living these days, is we're getting that fight or flight, and we're getting this like the scarcity in us because we are, you know, we don't know how to handle these things. So when that's like really coming from like a state of fear. But when you're operating off of your parasympathetic nervous system, which is when you're, you know, in homeostasis and you're calm, and it's your place of genius and power and creativity. You know, you make better decisions. You're coming at you're approaching your life the way you're supposed to approach your life. But we don't live in that place.
No, but
we live in this like scary, reactive place.
And we're overwhelmed so often. I mean, we're living in a world where we are bombarded all the time with so much information, and that's why a strong nervous system is so important, like to find a practice that helps to balance the nervous system so that you understand when things come towards you that you have techniques how to calm yourself down and soothe yourself so that you don't.
So important.
Because otherwise you just burn yourself out. And so many of us are burned out because that constant, we're in this fight-flight mode so much.
Yeah, and I think that's where breath work really does come into play. And it sounds so woo. I know some of this conversation is so woo.
Not to me.
I mean, but it's kind of like the intangibles of the human experience are very legitimate, right?
Yeah.
And I actually, this morning, before we started shooting today, there was a breathwork class. And so I joined it, and it was fascinating. It was an hour long. I was like, oh my gosh, can I do this for an hour? It was so good though. Like it got me to such like a still place that when it was done, I was like, wow, I felt so calm and so present. And I'm like, how do I take this with me the rest of the day? Like I should start my day like this every day. Like,
I know.
And there was some stuff that happened beforehand that I was already feeling like agitated, nervous, like, you know, and it just literally like, you know, kind of calmed it all down. So I think it's important to have those tools that we can use for ourselves that allow us to get to that place. That's so important.
Yeah.
So,
and it's nice to see, I feel there is more and more openness towards these kind of practices. You even make,
it's becoming a little bit more, it's more acceptable, more mainstream, more people are, you know, understanding the benefits really.
Yeah.
So.
And you have to just experience it. Like instead, because you can't really explain it to someone, you need to have the experience. So,
well, people are thirsty for transformation. They're thirsty for change. They want, you know, they want to be fulfilled. I mean, that's
because we are more than just this physical body.
Correct.
And, you know,
it's like that little soul in there. It's going to, if you don't listen to the calling, it's going to put you in a place where you have no choice to listen. So I'm kind of like, hey, people, don't get into that place. Don't get so far down that it comes looking for you. Like, get yourself to a place where you're like, okay, I'm going to listen to myself and let it guide me and let that inner knowing guide me and find my soul purpose before my soul's like, I'm going to put you in a lifetime out for a little bit and you're going to listen to me.
It's so true.
That's what happens. Well, I really appreciate you stopping by today. Thank you. Well, I know you're busy right now, and this was perfect. And it's just great to see you. I haven't seen you in so long. So, two things I'm going to ask you. Last two things.
Okay.
Number one, what would you tell yourself 6 months ago? And I ask this question in every show because I believe that we're always evolving, and that some people think that it's like, okay, you know, what would you tell yourself 10 years ago or as a child? But the consistent evolution that we have and change can happen so quickly. Yeah. So
and for me, this last year had a lot of intensity because literally a year ago, my dad passed, who I was very close with. So for the grieving process and everything. And 6 months ago, I was really in the depth of it. So it's about like, you can feel joy again. You know, it's always when we have challenges, you know, you finding the ways how to move through it. And then again, my practice helped a lot on this journey because it's not grief. And, you know, grief, I feel in our world, a lot of people in different areas are grieving. It's not just, you know, losing a parent, but losing, you know, a relationship that ends, a marriage, a job that goes away. There's a lot of grief. I think since the pandemic, a lot of people experienced grief, also grief of a world that is not the way we remember it, because the world has changed so much. So to know that, it's okay to feel joy again, and
give yourself that permission.
Gives yourself that permission, and find these pockets, find these things that give you joy, and don't feel like, I'm going to wait until I do that, until I reach a certain age, or until I have that job, or to give yourself permission, have that joy now.
Yeah. Okay, I love that. That's so good. How can people find you?
They can find me. I'm on Instagram.
Okay.
Carola Rainmond. My website, Carola Rainmond. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I will put all of that information on the show notes. So if you guys want to look into Carola, you will be able to do so. Thank you so much for joining us. I love this conversation. That was really impactful. So again, if you want to get in touch or get more information on Carola, you can find all that information in the show notes. And if you feel like you're on the brink of something different, you want to shift in your life, you can text the word shift to 55444, and I will send you a checklist. It's just a small little checklist, but it's a little assessment, and might give you a different perspective about how you're looking at your life, the stories you're telling yourself, and whether or not you need to make that shift yourself. So hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll talk to you soon.
Leadership on Purpose, a featured presentation, airs every Monday on the Earth Angel Media Network. This episode of Leadership on Purpose is sponsored and produced by Live Pure. Optimize your life by taking your health to the next level. Listen now to learn how Live Pure will make your world better.
Live Pure is an American-based distribution system of online portals that give discounted access to clean, potent, natural, and ethically sourced healthy solutions for fat loss, muscle gain, immaculate skin care, immune system support, whole body cleanse, physiological balance, and performance support for athletes of all ages. Live Pure handpicks the best products and nutrients from world-class companies, always adding to their quickly growing wellness lineup that now includes Korean skincare, medical-grade nutraceuticals listed as pharmaceutical alternatives in the physician's desk reference, and healthy coffee that rivals the world's best, but for only about $1 per cup. Leadership on Purpose listeners looking for vitality, youth, beauty, and better health can get 25% off retail by visiting livepure.com/leadership and signing up for free as a preferred customer. If you are a content creator, influencer, or home-based entrepreneur looking for worldwide cash flows from the emerging gig economy, Live Pure's state-of-the-industry brand partner affiliate program can bring you up to 7 different payment vectors as bonuses. As a content creator aligned with Live Pure and Earth Angel Media, you will enjoy massive co-marketing benefits, including a cutting-edge website that is personally branded to you or to your business. Sign up as a brand partner affiliate at livepure.com/leadership, or drop us a note at connect@earthangelproject.com to get more information.